What's going on, folks? We are back for the Ivory Show, and we are going to be talking today about toxicity, toxic men, and the goal of this show is to get to the bottom of how women met these toxic men, how they have overcome these challenges that they have faced, and how it had made them a better person moving forward. So tonight we're going to have multiple callers call in, but our featured guest will be Gina. And before we get started, I'm going to give it a countdown. And then Gina, when you are ready, you give me the thumbs up after the countdown and we'll be good to go. Hope everyone's doing good today. If you want to know how you can support the great work we're doing, I offer one-on-one consultations to single moms, independent women that are looking to get these toxins out of their system. I also have a Patreon page where I have a single mom tier, independent woman tier, showing them how to find good men in 2023 and beyond. So we'll be doing a countdown and we'll be back shortly. Let's do it. All right, so we are back again. Thumbs up. We are good to go. I'm going to bring my very special guest on the stage, and I look forward to getting some insight on her background story. Georgina Thompson will be coming on stage right now. Here we go.
Hi, Ivy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good.
Well, at first, before I even get started, I just want to thank you for joining us on the Ivory Show. We're going to be talking about toxicity this year moving forward. The goal for me, I know a lot of men are getting upset, but the goal for me is, hey, man, if you have daughters, if you have sisters, if you have mothers, if you have any women in your life, I would hope you want to know what the toxic traits are to keep these loved ones away from those types of men. So I am just thrilled to be able to talk with you tonight, and I'm gonna do a lot of listening. A few questions here and there, but I want to get into the initial early parts of you meeting that toxic man. How was he? Who was he? You don't have to use names. Like, what type of person was he? Was he that kind of like made you interested in him? And then we'll dive deep and ask a few more questions and go from there.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, what usually happens is they get you very young, inexperienced, and they seek you out. They're looking for insecurities, the daddy missing, looking to fill that daddy figure spot. And I was ripe for the picking because I wanted somebody to love me, and my father wasn't in the picture, and I had um, a history of abuse in the family and watching this metamorphosis and tried to stop it and thought, gee, this guy loves me a lot. And he must really love me because he's trying to control every aspect of my life. Gee, he loves me a lot. And, when you're young and you come from a bad background and a family of historical abuse, you kind of fall into that trap and you think you're going to avoid it, and you fall into it because you're young. They do the right things, they say the right things. The red flags that I should have known that I didn't get taught was money control. They take control by bits and pieces. What you wear, what you say, how you walk, what you eat, how you talk, how you sleep. It's just like one chunk at a time gets reeled back until you don't even act or exist like you as a person. In fact, my mother, after a couple of years of being with this man, told me that she didn't recognize me. I wasn't the Gina that she knew. And I didn't understand it because, he was my world. They isolate you. You don't have friends. His friends are your friends. your friends don't count. You don't have opportunities to go out and have a life, a career, or anything like that. They really isolate you. So, and I think this is a learned behavior that they learn watching their fathers do the same thing. And I'm sure that alcohol and drugs had a lot to do with the creation of my toxic person. And that's how it started with me. And it just got progressively worse as years went by.
And I really just thank you for being able to just express a difficult moment in your life. And there's so many different things that I want to talk about. Um, I think a lot of ladies out there don't highlight what you just highlighted of learned behavior, of coming from a type of man, a type of father, maybe uncles, maybe people in his family where he thought that that was correct. He thought, we're not condoning it, but he thought that that was the way to treat women, the way to conduct himself in a relationship, and kind of like elaborate a little bit more on that, because to me, um, there's two ways you can go about it. Like I know men out there that were brought up that way, and they say I'm going to be everything but that. And I
Right.
know men that were like, you know what, it just it's all I've seen, it's all ingrained in me, and that's what I want to become. So talk a little bit more about how that might have impacted him in regards to the relationship with you.
Okay. Well, it's all personality. I have other brothers, and a good case study is I have one brother that's a terrible alcoholic and a terrible narcissist and controlling. I have another brother that is the most wonderful man in the world, but it's a conscious choice of how you want to be and who you want to be. And with my abuser, he was a control freak anyway. That was his personality. He was always wanted to be the hero, wanted everybody to look at him. He always wanted to be first and foremost, look at me, look at me. And then I was always pushed behind, even though I might have done the work and he took all the credit for it, or I did all the party planning. He took the credit. It was all about me, me, me. Look what I'm doing. So a lot of that is personality. Some of it is learned behavior. Some of it is alcoholism. Um, but he found it effective to keep me under control. I was 17 when I met him. He was 23. So he had an advantage. He'd already been out in the world, and I had just moved out on my own. So, I was timid and scared of the world. He took advantage of that. And he used something that is very cruel. He used fear to control me. And that's another tactic that if they know that you're scared, they will play on that fear. I was scared to be alone. I didn't want to be alone. I saw my friends that were single moms and I didn't want that. So he would play on the fear and then he'd come to my rescue and then everything would be okay. So, it was a real sick struggle between that. And, I was young, like I said, and as I started growing, I started fighting back and it got worse. Then would get in. I tried passive aggressive. I tried letting go. I mean, I did 32 years with this man. So I was scared to leave. And the reason why I reached out and said I'd like to come on is I want to let the ladies know out there that you do not have to stay. And when you see these red flags, either get counseling or get out. But what happened to me, I don't want to happen to anybody else. Number one, I'm 54 years old. He sucked my youth. It's really tough at this age now to restart. I'm doing it. It was frightening to leave. It's not easy. This is not, oh, turn the faucet off. You're going to just leave now. No, I mean, they create an abusive environment to a point where you crave them. They're like an addiction, and it's really hard to leave. But, I had good people around me. I had family, I had friends that stopped me. I wanted to go back 3 times. I think I even said that in one of our Q&As online. 3 times I was scared and wanted to go back, and my friends stopped me. And my mother asked me, please don't, because she's afraid next time I would die. Because I ended up, what happens is it manifests illnesses and diseases when you're suppressed and under so much duress and stress. You internalize. For me, I got cancer. And then when I got out of the household and out of his control, then I started to see what freedom was really like. You know, it's almost kind of like a cult like activity. And some people online will call it the pimp mentality, where they beat you down, then they bring you up, and they beat you down, and they bring you up, and they reprogram you, and they tell you that, you know, nobody else is going to love you like they do. And, you know, all these things that you hear, and you start believing it. And the other thing is they attack your self-esteem. I was 300 pounds. I am close to my high school weight now, and I'm like 30 pounds away from where I started. But I internalized and I went to food for comfort and all of the cliche things that you do just to get peace. Towards the end, I would take my meal to my room because then he would attack me at the table. And then he taught my son to attack me at the table. So I would prepare food and then I would take my food and then I'd go in the bedroom and eat alone because that was the only peace I could get away from him because he controlled every aspect of my life. I worked with him, we had a company together. You know, there was no time to get away from him.
I'm just sitting here and I'm just blown away, beating cancer, losing all of that weight, and dealing with the abuse of a toxic man. You said something about your mother saw you and didn't recognize you because of the toll that he took on you. And I say that all the time on my page. I let ladies know that you don't have to even worry about him just being a jerk or him being toxic. He literally by association, he can slowly but surely change the good-hearted woman that you are. He can change the great qualities that you have on inside of you based off of being associated with him, right? Talk about your son, right? How that influence of your son seeing the type of man that he is and how that can possibly affect him for the long term, right? Unless you get out of the situation. So, talk a little bit about that. How there are women out there that they don't have good friends. They don't have people in their lives that's saying, "Hey, you look like you're going through hell. You need to leave this guy. You need to get out of the situation." How important was it for you to have a support system while you were going through the issues with that toxic man?
It was huge. If I didn't have the support system, I probably would have went back because he did everything he possibly could to force me back. Economics, physical, safety, uh, everything that he could think of to drive me back, to get me back under his control. See, I was the one that set up the company. I was the brains behind everything. You know, he wasn't stupid, but he didn't have what he has today had it not been for me. He picked me because I had a clean social security number and I had a good credit standing. And that's what he needed. He needed a hard worker, somebody that was willing to work hard. And he never did love me. It was what I could do for him. And they're going to pick women that do that, you know, what you can do for them, what they can get out of this relationship. And then, of course, if you look really nice or other people start noticing you, then they're going to start stripping things away from you. Like I was not allowed to go to the hair salon. If I didn't do my own hair, he told us we couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford lawn care. I had to do it. All these things, he was very, very manipulative economically, you know, telling me, he fed me this. We never have enough money. We're too poor to do this. We're too poor to do that. You got to do it. Worked me like a dog, and treated me just as bad and would walk several paces ahead of me as if I was a servant, wherever we would go. If we went with other couples, then he was hounding on the other woman. And one time I stood at the truck when everybody got out just to see how long it took him to realize I wasn't even behind him. And they left me all the way in the parking lot and they got to the door of the restaurant before they realized I wasn't even there. So this is the denigration of a human being that they're slowly whittling away. And then if you have children and they're showing your male children or your female children it's acceptable, then they're breeding another generation. So the best thing I can tell somebody if you don't, and that's another thing I want to reach out is, you know, we need as women to stick together. We need to recognize each other and stop fighting amongst ourselves and competing amongst ourselves and stand up, you know, and have a network of matriarchy and to mentor these younger girls because it's destroying families. It's destroying women. And I really don't think that relationships need to be this way. I know that there's a lot of paternal mentality out there, but honestly, a relationship's a beautiful thing if you love and respect each other and honor each other. And I won't bring in theology into this, but some type of faith-based system.
Please bring it in. Please bring it in. I want to hear it. Yes, bring it.
Okay. Well, I really honestly believe that it doesn't matter if you're Islam, Muslim, whatever. They all believe that the woman is to be cherished and loved and honored, but that doesn't mean the woman can act out and be disrespectful to the man. So, it's kind of like the taming of the shrew. I see a lot of women going off on one end, like you don't owe me, if you want it, put a ring on it type of mentality when the men are, being hounds. We kind of need to dial it back. We've lost our center in society, and it's, you can see it in the family unit. Families are not staying together. We need to stay together. Children need a two-parent family. It doesn't matter if it's mommy or daddy, or, I'm not going to get into all that, but they need two parents and they need the stability. They need a home for stability. The statistics are out there. And that's why I stayed, because I'm very much a brainiac and studied, and I want to give my son every opportunity. But, sometimes I think maybe the 32 years I stayed with this man was too long, and maybe I should have left earlier, and my son wouldn't be as damaged as he is. He listens, and I've tried really hard to interrupt this, and he understands. And I've put God into it. He's gone to church. I talk to him all the time. I don't down his father in front of him. And we just know that his father has issues. And now that I've removed myself out of the equation, now he's seeing it more. So even if your children don't see it when they're younger and they favor the abusive parent, have faith and hope and hold your tongue and just be the best parent you can, because they will see it later. Children will see it, and they will understand it. It's not something you should basically just bring them in and bring them into an adult level. But I tried to protect my son as much as possible so he didn't see it till I left. And he thought it was funny and he thought it was cool because dad was doing it. But when I left, he didn't think it was too cool, because then he was it. And that's the other thing about a toxic male in a household, is that once the wife is out of the equation, they will turn it on the next victim. They're always going to pick a victim. And mine was an extreme narcissist. So he's going to get the next victim, his next feed, his next person, whether it's my son or a staff member or a woman in the community, they will find their next source. So, the things I know that you asked, how do you beat it? You get yourself a support group, whether you go to church, friends, family, or some kind of an outreach program. Churches usually have really good outreach programs. I also had to do some physical things that were very important. One of them was with all that negativity coming at you, your brain actually, the neuroscientists have found that if you constantly think negative, it's like beating a pathway in your brain. And so immediately when a thought comes in, it goes right to that negative because it's the path most traveled in your brain. And it took me over a year to stop that everything wasn't negative and everything wasn't because I did something. And I had to consciously stop that thought and derail it. One of the things they taught me in cancer treatment when I went to a psychologist, because I was wigging out, it was really scary. And they said, when you feel yourself ramping up, look around, pick 10 things and start naming it. It will derail your brain and you can get back up to where you were, because you're getting into this panic attack that happens, and you want to de-escalate that as quickly as possible. Positive affirmations. I had to write on my mirror with an erasable marker an acronym. It was SPIT, smart, pretty, intelligent, talented. And wherever I went, whether I was in a hotel or in my own home, I had a marker and I wrote that down so that every time I would go in to do my teeth, my hair, or whatever, I was reminded that I am smart, I am pretty, I am intelligent, I am talented, because, that's been stripped away from you. Positive affirmations, YouTube is full of them. Pick one that works for you. Sometimes the rebuild self-esteem videos are really good, but there's so many out there and everybody's different. Pick what works for you. I went and changed my diet because your brain is affected by your input. Exercise, with all the stress and anxiety, you need to get that out. Then I went to yoga, and then of course the other thing is healing frequencies. There's frequencies on the internet, on YouTube, that you can listen to for sleeping, for stress, for happiness, and not all of them work. Pick what works for you. And then the other two that really helped me was Anita Morjani. She was the one that made me realize my cancer was manifested from the suppression of self, that I was suppressing who I was and was trying to please him and everybody else. I was in that people pleasing mode. And she's one of the best documented near death experiences out there. I mean, her medical file is like this. She's had multiple doctors look at it. She went from huge cancer, cysts, and tumors all over her body to healed in front of their eyes. And then, I picked Sadhguru. He's my favorite. He's just like great. And these are all positives. Pick something positive, take out the negatives. I stopped watching the news. It's negative doom and gloom 24/7. I took out toxic people out of my life. Same thing. If you've got somebody in your life that is always negative and always complaining, never happy, you can't soar and I have to still to this day take people out of my circle that are just the Debbie Downers, and I try to help them. But if they want to mire themselves down in that mud of doom and gloom, there's not much you can do, if they don't want to help themselves, but to, give them the tools and move on, because that's just going to bring you down. And so these are the things that I did. And self-care. I think as a mom and as a woman, we're always told we're selfish and we're superficial and vain. And I wouldn't let anybody take pictures of me. I was 300 pounds. I was pushing over 300 pounds. I was huge and didn't even realize how big I was. I have no pictures of me hardly with my son because I was ashamed of how I looked. So my whole life was basically erased. Now there's pictures all over. My son tells me to get off Snap. So, but the self-care is so important because it's part of your self-esteem, and no, it's not selfish to take care of you. The cliche you hear on the internet is put the oxygen mask on you first before you help the person next to you on the plane. Same thing with what we're going through with toxic relationships, is that you can't help anybody else until you help yourself. And that was really, really hard for me because I was self-sacrificing. They got clothes, I shopped at Goodwill. They had food, I ate Jello. Everything was for my husband and my son. I gave everything. I would lay down my life for them. And it's not necessary. I look back and I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking. He didn't love me anymore because I did all these things. In fact, he actually didn't respect me because I was, laying over, showing my belly. It's a primal animal instinct. If you see an animal roll over and show their belly, they're submitting to you. And so I was doing that, and he didn't respect me, so he would just treat me worse. So, these are the things I've learned. I've survived. I came out alive. I beat cancer. I lost over 100 pounds. And soon I'm going to have a tummy tuck and I'll look like I did when I was in high school. So I hope this for every woman out there, that this is possible.
I'm just blown away, and again, thank you for sharing your story. A lot of folks don't understand, especially women that are in a relationship, toxic relationship, is that after the toxic relationship ends, the work is not over. A lot of people
No.
think, okay, I left them, I'm good, it's over, I'm good to go. No, you're going to have to go through a long period of unlearning all of that
Mhm.
toxic information that was put into your mindset from him, and then maybe your own creation of creating those toxic thoughts, right? Saying you're not beautiful, you're not attractive, no one will want you. He
Mhm.
starts saying it, and you start saying it to yourself. So I'm so glad you talked about that subconscious, right? I read a few books where it says never let yourself finish a negative thought. It can start off negative and say, I can't. And when you can say, but I can't wait to be the best version of myself, right? You can just
Right.
change that negative start and end it on a positive note. And then you also said something very important is the dynamic of your son, right? He's seen how his toxic father is, but you didn't call that out, right? He had to see it for himself. And I see a lot of times mothers out there will bash the father, even if they're accurate, even if it's true. But you got to let the kids see for themselves, and then they're like, "Wow, this my father really has some issues. Like he really, I got to get this stuff out of me because he is really toxic." So
Yes.
my advice to anyone that's listening to Georgina right now is that she beat cancer. She lost 100 pounds. She left a toxic relationship over 20, 30 years, right? She is showing you that you can do it. She is showing you that you can, if you have God on your side or whoever you believe in, if you have a support system, right? And if you don't have that support system or the right people around you, you got to cut them off and have people around you and say, hey, that's not right. He shouldn't talk to you that way. You shouldn't stay with someone like that, right? It takes, how they say it takes a village to raise a child. It also takes a village